I think him to just say something like, oh, I can come to your room, but I was even on campus. He's like, oh, I can come to your room and we just hang out, watch a movie, we don't have to go all the way. And I'm like, first of all, I do not know you, sir. There is no way you're coming to my room. And then that was really, that guy wanted a wife, right? He wanted a wife right then and there. He made it very clear. And I mean, I wish him all the best in life. He eventually got married. But at the time, he was coming straight on and saying, yo, I want no more friends. And I mean, I appreciated that. I appreciated that he never wanted any more friends. And we just went our separate ways. Possibly he was at a place spiritually that, I couldn't take that on at the time, so.
Gotcha. We're gonna touch on that a little later. Being alone, But before we get there, I want to know, like, what do you think? So males and females are different. Males and females are different. And many times we run into problems when males expect females to be males. Like we don't put it like that, but pretty much we expect them to be males and females expect males to be females.
To be females, that's true.
What's the biggest thing about guys that, if any, that you just don't get? Like you just don't get, like, why males think like that? Why do they do that? If there's anything where you just don't understand us.
I've spent a lot of time reading a lot about males and the male psychology. So men are from Venus. No, men are from Mars, girls are from Venus. The 5 love languages is also a very good one.
Before you continue, and I'm going to also ask, what are things that you think males just don't get about females?
About females, okay. So if I should just pull something onto the hat, it would be the lack of communication. Like I feel like males act like, say, talking them feelings and expressing their desires and what they want is like so hard. And I think that's actually one of the main things for females too. I think the thing that males don't get the most is why females think that males can read their minds. Why you feel like, say, I'm supposed to know what's always happening. I'm supposed to know what I need to do next, when we're both growing and when we're both learning each other. So one, I think females are annoyed that males don't communicate more. They're not as expressive. They're maybe not as in some men, not all, but a lot of men aren't as in tune with their emotions as we would want them to be. So they're not going to want to sit down and talk about why them stay. So because them family have some issues and they're not going to want to do that. And we want them to sit down and talk because that's how a lot of us, that's how we release. And then of course the reading of the mind for men, I know that for sure.
Yeah. Do you think the males not expressing themselves, do you think that's like how we are, or do you think it's like a more of a social thing? Like,
social thing for sure. Social thing for sure. Some people have succumbed to social pressure. So we've allowed the society to basically describe how we're supposed to behave and supposed to act instead of actually being in tune with our feelings. So I think family background, family dynamics has a lot to do with it. Sometimes when you look in these households, that's how their father was, that's how their uncles were, and that's just how they thought that they were supposed to be. But the more you try to, I guess, re-socialize yourself and try to edify off some soft skills and just want to grow and develop as a person, then you let go of some of those constructs.
Yeah. I'm not so sure if it's a social thing.
I think so, okay.
I think, of course, society plays a role.
Yeah.
I think also there are things that are just different with males and females.
Because of the biology?
Yes. Of course, we're speaking generally.
That's fair.
I think males are driven by what they do, what they make. I think females are very driven by relationships, right? So you'll meet a man, right? And he'll like, if he's to like boast or just share he'll share like what his job is, what he does, what he accomplished, that kind of thing. And then you meet a female and she'll like speak about her children and what they're doing, and so females are like very relational in nature, and males are very things and building and doing. And even if you look back in like the Garden of Eden, right? Like Adam was like to tend to the garden and do the work and whatever, and then Eve was like a helpmeet. So it's like she was more relational. So I think a part of it is biology, and then I think with society and those things being practiced, it may
Over time.
it may go to extreme. So the
Mhm.
extremes may be societal, but I do believe that there's an element of who we are that kind of initiated that kind of behavior.
That's fair. That's fair. Point taken. And also, like, if you really step into what your role is as like a biblical role of a man to kind of be in charge, to kind of lead versus the woman who is supposed to, be the nurturer and whatever, you find that those roles actually call for certain characteristics and certain behaviors. So I guess they work together.
For sure, for sure. The mind reading thing though, I get it, but I don't get it. Like, so like I understand that females feel like if the guy likes me, he should know this.
Yeah.
But there's the thing I always say, like females are different, right? So what this female might appreciate, the next female might not. And
Yeah.
so I'll come across where females will say like, yo, if ready, you should da da da. Or if you do this, I'm going to feel away. But I'm gonna be like, but like the
Oh,
last
before
person
you
I
know
did
that.
it wasn't even a big deal, right? So it's
Yeah.
like that females have to understand that even females are different. And
True.
so you can't like expect there to be these rules that the guy must know.
Mhm.
That kind of thing.
That's true. That's true. I also think that as females, we want communication and we want to be communicated to, but some things we hold back because of what we think men are supposed to do. So we don't communicate our expectations. And I think it's one of the downfalls in a lot of relationships, marriages, even platonic relationships. We're upset about something and we don't talk about it, or we never communicated those expectations in the first place, and then we bring that burden. So we bring that burden, and the burden that we bring, it kind of blows something else that happens out of proportion. So really and truly, we never vex, say you leave the socks on the floor, I never that from last week when it was something and you never picked me up on time. That's when I was upset. And then no, you're saying, but it's not a big deal. Why you're behaving like that? But it's really because sometimes we stifle things and we don't communicate clearly. We don't communicate our expectations in a lot of our relationships. And the truth is, as humans, we can't read each other's minds. We can't. So it's something that I'm learning how to do. It doesn't always
Read
come
person's
up,
minds.
huh? No, 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 no. Communicate my expectations clearly with even like my friendships. It's not always received in the best way, especially with other girls. It's not always received in the best way because they feel like your expectations are too high, or they feel like you're touchy. But I don't think it's being touchy. I just think you get better relationships when you tell people exactly what you expect. So when you're clear on your expectations, then people know how to behave, and then say, okay, well, Zara expects me to do X. Then if I don't do X, you're gonna feel away. So
As the example you gave with the socks and whatever, an analogy that I've used yesterday with a friend of mine was, you know when you're eating something hot and it's too hot and it like scorch your tongue,
yes.
and then after that you may continue eating and the rest of the food is the right amount of heat, but because the tongue already scorched, everything
Yes.
else just start burning,
Yes.
right? So when something hurts you, it's like these other things aren't that big of a deal, but that hurt from the first thing is still there. So
Right.
everything just comes and starts to burn, and so it's an issue. But here's the other thing with communication though. I feel like if the female isn't gonna trust the guy, then it might as well like not be a relationship because because there's another thing I've experienced. Like if you're not gonna trust me, I'm not gonna wanna like share things with you. Like let me give you an example. So it was like somebody got murdered, right? And I was at that person's apartment that same night, but I didn't murder the person. But I was at the apartment before the person got murdered, or even after, right? If I know you trust me, I would be able to tell you, listen, I was at the apartment, but I didn't kill Jack. I didn't kill the apartment. But if I know you don't trust me, I don't even want to share, even though I'm innocent, I don't even want to share any information, because you're going to take that and you're going to add what you want to add to it, and you're going to spin it in your little head.
Your own story.
Right. And so I feel like a lot of the time, a lack of trust may also aid in a lack of communication with guys, and maybe even both sides.
That's true. Because the more comfortable you get, you realize the more open people get in general with a lot of things. So
when I spoke about trust, people will say trust has to be earned. So you meet guy, and you start talking. Do you like give him a blank slate and say, I'm just gonna trust you until otherwise proven, or I'm not gonna trust you until you prove that you're trustworthy? Like, how do you approach trust?
Well, I think it's different for everybody. Personally, I don't have trust issues because I've never really been in relationships like that have burned me. So I personally don't struggle with that, but I know that a lot of people
whisper prayer and just thank God.
yes, I know it's a big blessing. It's a big blessing. Just because I've just been okay sitting back. I've been okay looking on and observing and not getting into, you get into like a relationship every month and you break up and no, I've never been that person. Not because I never saw people that I like, but because I was pretty content in figuring out who I was. So anyways, we can jump forward to the fact that I don't really have trust issues. But some people have trust issues because of what they've gone through and what they've been through. So for me, the first thing I've always said to people, especially if you're you're pursuing somebody or you're pursuing a relationship, the first thing is to be open to knowing that one day you will have to start breaking down the walls, right? You don't break down the walls immediately because you don't know this person, you don't know what this person is capable of. But in the getting to know phase, you're not gonna start too deep and whatever, but if you break down the walls gradually, but you have to have that mindset going in, like especially when things start to get serious, you have to say, okay, I will have to start breaking down the walls if this is what I really want. And it's not something that happens automatically. It's something that takes prayer, something that takes journaling, something that takes asking other people to pray for you. It's not an easy process, but it's a gradual process. It's not something where you just gonna get up and say, I trust you. But without trust, then the other aspects of the relationship will get affected and the relationship might not be able to grow. So it's more than just saying, boy, we're not gonna trust a person here because of all I've been through, but it's also being smart about it. And this week we learned about forgiveness and letting go of stuff. Sometimes, well, this week in the adult lesson, for those who wouldn't know what I'm referring to, we spoke about forgiveness and the fact that forgiveness is for you more than it is for anybody else. And sometimes when you forgive persons, it doesn't mean that your relationship is reinstated. It doesn't mean that things will go back to normal, but it just means that you are able to move on. And sometimes we harbor these trust issues because we haven't moved on from things that have burnt us. We haven't let go. And as Christians, we need to let go. We need to learn how to move on. Letting go don't mean you need to be back in the person's house and being your BFF or being back with them or anything. It just means that you need to learn to say, vengeance is not yours. Vengeance is for the Lord. Yes, they did you wrong, but you have to be able to learn how to break and be honest. So the more you develop this relationship with this new person, you have to say, yo, this did happen to me and this is why XYZ. And if that person's serious about you, then over time it should flow naturally.
I hear a lot of conversations about forgiveness, and I hear a lot of things that become popular, but I don't necessarily agree with.
Okay.
I don't necessarily agree that forgiveness is mostly about you, right? Mm-hmm. I believe that it has a lot to do with you, but I feel like we've said that it's something that we do.
But what's the difference? What's the difference between mostly and a lot?
I'll explain.
Okay.
This is something that we do as people, Christians and just people generally. We overcorrect things, right? So like if we're doing something in one direction and we're doing it wrong, we like swing the pendulum all the way to the other side, right?
Okay.
Let me give you two quick examples. Like probably 2 decades ago, in my experience, on like stewardship days, we'd all talk about money, right? We just focus on money. And then there became a season when stewardship is not just about money, stewardship is not just about money, it's about all this. And I've been hearing that for like legit probably 2 decades, and now we don't talk about money at all on stewardship days, right? Another example, maybe the same 2 decades ago, when we tell the story about the prodigal son, we talk about the prodigal son. And then one day it's just like, we only talk about the prodigal son, but there's the son that's back home. The son is back home. And then we overcorrect and we only talk about the son that's back home, and we never really talk about the prodigal son. Saying that to say, for forgiveness, many times you might focus on the other person and we never really focus on the fact that, it has something to do with us as well. It's about us letting go, us not hurting or whatever. But I do believe that it's not mostly about that. I believe just like love, there's benefits to me in loving you, loving my brother, loving whoever. There's benefits to me. But I don't think I should love focusing on the fact that it's going to benefit me as well. I feel that my focus needs to be the person who's the recipient of the love. I do believe that forgiveness is therapeutic for me. It's necessary for my relationship with God. But I don't think my main objective, my main persuasion, what's the word I'm looking for? My main motivation should be the benefit I'm gonna get. I do believe that it's forgiveness is wrapped up in the element of love, and as such, I should be also equally as focused on the benefit the offender is gonna get, right? So I think we have to look at it from both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
And not just focus on the fact that, forgiveness is mostly for you to let go, for you to move on, whatever. But also as it relates to how it's going to restore that person and help that person as well.
Yeah, I think it's balanced. I think it's balanced. I agree, but I do think that it's if we're supposed to split it, I think it's 60-40.
Okay.
I personally think it's 60-40 because at the end of the day, you giving love and forgiveness to another person, them actually acting on that forgiveness and wanting to change is on them.
Okay.
But you letting go of that burden is something that will help you to evolve. That the other person, they might not even care that you have forgiven them. It might not affect them any at all. And you should also be okay with that. That's why I think it's 60-40, because at the end of the day, sometimes we find it so hard to forgive because they're saying, but this person is still such a bad person. Or this person is still going about and raping people, but they raped me. So at the end of the day, do I still hold on to this because this person will not change? Because your forgiveness to them, it don't affect them none at all. So that's why I think that it's predominantly for us, but I do get your point.
Yeah, and I guess the situations, it also depends on the situation, because
That's true.
There's the situation where the person is unrepentant.
Yes.
And still carry on the behavior, where you have to just forgive them and just move on for yourself.
Yes.
And there's also the situation where the person is repentant and wants to be like restored to that, whether it's a relationship or a friendship or whatever it is. So
right.
the situation has a lot to do with it. Now I want to ask you this, and you're going to be giving the gentlemen that are watching life hacks. I want to know what are like some of the biggest turn-offs females may have, whether it's in a guy's approach, whether it's in something you may say. Like what's a turn-off for a female that guys may not even realize?
Christians or
either Christians or in general people.
I know that for sure it's a guy that spends the whole time trying to buy somebody. So trying to impress you because of all that they have achieved instead of the fruit of the spirit. I'm a very big advocate of allowing allowing the fruit to show and allowing God's impact on your life to show. It's not really about putting in a resume. So, oh, I am XYZ. I own this BMW. I do not care. I have my own money. Like we have our own ambitions. We have our own life. So I feel like a successful woman who is ambitious, working towards whatever goal, no matter how small your goal is still a goal, working towards anything. We're not very impressed when somebody tries to buy us or flaunt these materialistic things. Well, the woman that I talk to, some people are like that, but
of course.
Yeah, but it is. So that's one of the things. The second thing, I know it's a pet peeve, but I know that grammar and let's say you're talking at the bottom, I'm not telling no lie. Sometimes when the grammar is so bad, it gets a little, it gets, yeah, so 100. The third thing is what I said to you before, that there's no real balance. So you're not bringing yourself properly. Your physical appearance, you might be good looking, so you might be handsome, but you don't put yourself together properly. And especially in the church, I know that was one of the biggest concerns, that a lot of guys would say to me that, oh, Zara, the girls in the church, they talk about no men in the church, and look how they're here and them not looking our way and whatever. But when you do the comparison, outside will look attractive. And even for the females too, I've heard men say it all the time. Oh, there are no nice females in the church, or the ones in the church just as bad as the ones outside of the church. I've heard that over and over. But at the end of the day, we are not putting ourselves together in a way where we seem as if we're flourishing in whatever area we're in our little spaces. So even if you have 5 suits of clothes, we're not washing them properly, we're not ironing them properly, and we're not putting them together properly. We're not grooming ourselves properly. We're not representing Christ in the way that we need to as children. I always say, when people see me, they must want to come to church, they must say, oh my gosh, which God you serve? I want to be. So I know that's a major turn off, the fact that we're not bringing ourselves as men aren't bringing themselves as properly as they should. Them either they on the side where them look too much like the world, or them on the side where them can't even match them tie and them shirts. So yeah, that's also a big turn off. And other things like body odor, those little things, but those are like general stuff. But the deeper stuff, yeah.
All right, so you said the Lexus never impress you, and the big house or whatever. So what would have impressed you, or what has impressed you?
For me, and
check out part 3 where Zara's gonna answer that question. Also, we're gonna discuss women submitting to men. Here's the video.